What's up, crew? We've been looking at the work of Claude Monet, and we are going to create some artworks that are kind of in his style of Impressionism, and also relating back to some of the books we read about him, we're going to think about the pond and his love of like frogs and lily pads and the flowers in the pond and the cool brush strokes that he uses. So first we're going to need a piece of paper. I like to keep it light till I get it right, so I'm going to use my pencil and have an eraser handy. And to make our lily pads, we're going to use a lid. I have a lid here that is a circle, and the circle is going to help us make the lily pads. And we're going to use some rhythm, which means we're going to have multiple circles on our paper, and some of them are even going to be going off the page, so it might even be just a semicircle or half circle, or even smaller, maybe a quarter of a circle. So you get to decide where you put your lily pads. Maybe you want one right in the center. I'm going to start and just put one right here, and I hold it down with one hand, and then I use my pencil in the other to go right up against the lid and trace it, and I make a circle. Perfect. So I'm going to keep going. Maybe this one, see how it's off the page just a little bit? It's more interesting if some of your circles go off your page. So I might have another one down here, and I have to move my paper a little bit. I'm only going to have about a quarter of that lily pad showing, like that. Maybe another little nugget up here. Oh, look at that. Just a little baby quarter of a lid, and maybe just one more right here. You can have as many lily pads as you want. Look, that's barely there, isn't it? The next thing we're going to do is sometimes a lily pad has a little piece missing, almost like a piece of a pie or a little triangle. So to make a little piece of the pie or a triangle, we're going to make like a diagonal line here, a diagonal line there. And it doesn't matter where you have your little triangle piece cut out. Maybe I want it right here. So just a little piece like that. I'm just going to make the little marks. Then, with my handy dandy eraser, I can erase the outside edge of that circle. And look, it looks like a piece of that lily pad is missing. And I'm going to do that on some other chunks of lily pads too. Maybe not these little guys here. Maybe I'll put one here. And again, your little chunk missing could be as big or small as you want it. Now it kind of looks like Pac-Man, doesn't it? And I'll do one here too. And then again, I just erase the outside edge, like so. All right. Once you have the amount of lily pads that you want, and you've taken a little chunk out of some of them, and you don't have to if you don't want to, I'm going to use oil pastels, and you could use oil pastels or you could use crayons. I'm just going to outline and also add some texture to my lily pad. So I might outline with a really dark green. So outlining is like tracing over your pencil marks. And I get the little triangle cut out there. And once you've outlined them, you might even want to add some texture as well. So, some texture in a lily pad, it might just be some lines. Maybe I have some lines going out from my little triangle shape, like that. Maybe you want marks going all the way around from the inside out, almost like a spiral on your lily pad. Maybe you want different colors of green. Maybe you want a lighter green in there too for some texture. Maybe I just do some curved lines like that. Maybe you want some yellow in there if it's a brighter one. I might be really crazy and add a little silver. So again, you're the artist, you can make whatever decisions you want. And maybe I'll put even some white for like some bright highlights. So white on white, that seems silly, but we're going to paint over it so you'll be able to see it show up later. because these oily, waxy pastels and crayons will resist our watery paint. Boom. I might also use just a little bit of black to create a shadow around our lily pads as well. So I'm just using the edge of my oil pastel. You could do the same with a crayon. Just create like a little shadow around it so it looks like they're floating on the water, because we're going to paint that water in a little bit. So you get a little shadow just really lightly, and lightly making an impression of a shadow. So that impressionism in Monet's painting is just like little choppy brush strokes like that. So I made a little shadow there. Now we're going to get our painting on. So I have what's called temper cakes. You might use watercolor or other paints you have, and if you don't have paints, you can color in choppy impressionist strokes as well. So I have my paintbrush, I have my water container, and I have my paint. So I'm going to wake up one color at a time. I might start with the lily pads here, so I'm going to get my brush wet, dunk it in the bath, and then swish and swirl and swish and wake up one color at a time. I might color over a lily pad, so I'm going to wake up green first, swish and I swirl and I swish, and I'm going to paint right over. I'm going to get a little more water on that. Paint right over those texture marks that we made with the oil pastels. And you'll see that they shine through, and you can even see the white start to shine through as well, because I added a little white there for like a highlight. So your oily, waxy crayon or oil pastel is still going to show up. And I'm painting over the lily pads. And I might even mix in a little yellow in there too. And that makes it kind of a lemon lime green. And you can paint over all of your lily pads. I might make this one all yellow. I might rinse my brush and go back to green. And if I want to lighten it up, I might really rinse my brush, wake up white, and add white to my green, and that makes it like seafoam green. So let's say we painted our lily pads. Now I'm going to show you those impressionist strokes for the water. So I'm going to use blue and turquoise and purple to do my water, and I'm going to just use like little rectangles. Look at those little rectangular brush strokes. This is how Monet worked, and he would do hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of little brush strokes to give the impression of water or light or flowers. So up close and personal to his paintings, it's just a bunch of little rectangles or little bricks or almost little dashes of color. But then when you're far away and look at his work, oh my goodness, it looks like a real pond. It looks like a real lily pad or real flower. But actually, it's just a bunch of little strokes. So I'm going to switch from turquoise. I might go to blue, and I might start to layer some of my brush strokes. So you could layer. You might go to purple. So you could let some of those layers dry and then go back over them with another color, or you could just go into a new area. So just a bunch of different brush strokes, and the key is to have just a little bit of the white in the paper still showing. So you're going to layer, 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 add a bunch of brush strokes, like little dashes, impressions, boom, 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 but you do so in a way that still has a little bit of the white in the paper showing, so it looks like the reflections, the glimmer of the water, the light dancing on the water, and then when it's far away, it'll look like real water, but up close you'll see those little brush strokes. Pretty cool, just like Mr. Claude Monet. Then, if you have some tissue paper, once your paint is dry, I'm going to use tissue paper to create some flowers that are floating on the lily pads and floating in the water. Just like in Monet's paintings, he has flowers floating in the water. So I cut up some tissue paper in different colors, but also just like little rectangles, little squares, And what I do, once I have my little piece of tissue paper, I just kind of crinkle and press and crinkle and press, and it might look just like a wadded piece of tissue paper up close and personal, but once you glue it to your paper, far away it looks almost like a real flower is floating in your water or on your lily pad. So carefully crinkle and press your tissue paper almost like you're wadding it up, and you can cut it with scissors if you want as well, but I'm just going to keep it this shape and size. And then once your paint is dry, you can just do some dots of glue, and then you can stick and press, and I like to hold it for a good 3 to 5 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then when I let go, some of your tissue paper might fly up, and you could just glue it down or cut it to fit the shape that you want. So I'll show you again. A little scrap of tissue paper, I crinkle and press. That one kind of looks like a rose to me. And you can put it on a lily pad or out in the water. I might put this one in the water. Dot, dot, not a lot with your glue. And press your tissue paper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Boom. And then it is on there. And then once all your work is dry and you hold it up from far away, you will see some amazing Impressionist paintings just like Claude Monet. And I'm going to show you a couple little ones that I finished. So you can see I layered the brush strokes, added some texture, the shadow, and then of course those tissue paper flowers. So you could make as many as you want, and as many lily pads as you want, as many flowers as you want, and hundreds of little brush strokes. Also, what's a lily pad without a frog? So we're going to make a little frog sculpture that can hop along on your lily pads as well. So the thing we're going to use to make our sculpture is actually an old toilet paper tube. So if you have a toilet paper tube lying around your house, you might want to use it for the sculpture. You can use recycled materials to make all sorts of different projects and sculptures. So what I like to do first is take off any loose toilet paper. And once you've done that, I like to staple one side. So I press one side flat, so it's still open on one side, but we shut it on the other. And once we shut it, I like to staple it. I might do 1, 2 staples here. 1, 2. If you need help stapling, ask for some assistance, or if you don't have a stapler, you could just glue it shut. So I stapled it shut on one side, kept it open on the other, and I'm going to use some liquid tempera paint. You could use tempera cakes or some watercolors and build it up, or you could color it with marker and Sharpie as well. I'm going to use the paint, and then I'm going to start with Verde Green. So I might even paint it like an Impressionist and just dot, 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 little dashes, little brush strokes. And once I have a layer of green, maybe I want to mix in some yellow. And it's going to mix right on my tube. And I could do little Impressionist strokes. And once I've filled that, I would let it dry and then maybe use some black and white to create some eyeballs. So you could add some eyes to your frog if you want to. Just like that. But you want to do it once your green is all dry, so you would go over the whole thing and just paint in layers, paint in little brush strokes. And once you've done that, I'm going to show this paper here, frog parts. So once you have your body painted and it's all dry with the toilet paper tube, you might want to use some scrap paper to create front legs and back legs, a tongue, a little tail, and maybe even a fly. So I'm going to show you just how you could do that. If you wanted to make a tongue, it's like an oval that's cut off on one side. So think of an oval, and you could just cut one side off at that line and it'd be flat on one side, maybe a little line or texture on the tongue, and you could cut it out and glue it right in the open mouth of your frog. Then you could use other scraps. Maybe you want your tail to be pink as well. The tail is a three-sided shape, a triangle. So you could make a triangle on scrap paper. You could even paint on your paper as well. If you didn't have colored scrap paper, if you want it to be green as well, you could do that. You could paint it, let it dry, cut it out, and then you could glue that on the little booty, the flat side of your frog. And then the front legs and back legs. So, frogs are good at jumping, right? So a front leg is actually going to be shorter than your back leg. They jump from their back leg. So a front leg, I'd have some curved lines like a little macaroni noodle. And then the little toes kind of have a circle on the end. So it's just lines and shapes. Lines and shapes like circles on little rectangles on a curved tube. That's like a front leg. Then a back leg is a little longer, a big curve like the letter C, another C inside it, connected at the top, and make a big foot on the bottom. So webbed toes like that. Then you could cut those out and glue them to the sides of your sculpture. And I'm going to show you one that I've done. Well, I've started this one. See how I painted all of the tube? I've added a front leg. I even added designs and patterns to it, and a back leg and a little tail. The tongue is in there. And then another cool detail is I made a fly. So a fly, kind of an oval body, and like two sideways hearts for wings. That's how I made my little fly. I would cut that out too. Now, I kind of attached the fly to a string so it would look like his tongue is sticking out really far to catch the fly. And then, if you attach it to a string, you can also think of it as a game where you try to flip the fly into his mouth, like that. Pretty cool. So, if you have some yarn or string, I'm going to move that. If you have some yarn or string, I like to measure and use my tools and materials. So I might measure it with a ruler, and let's say I wanted it to be 7 inches. I would find the number 7 on my ruler, put the end of my yarn there, and then using some scissors, I would cut at the end of my ruler so I knew, hey, that is a 7-inch long string or tongue. And then I would be able to glue that in there and glue it to my fly as well. So I could get my glue back, go dot, dot, not a lot in the mouth. Once it was all painted, of course. Once I have the glue on there, I could stick the string and hold and press till it was there, and then stick a fly on the end. So I will show you a finished example where I have my little frog sculpture hopping on the lily pads, and it can catch the fly in its mouth attached to a string. So you'll need some glue and scissors and some scrap papers for your attachments, but we are working like Claude Monet. We are an Impressionist artist, and we're also making a 3-dimensional sculpture of a frog as well. So I'll leave the frog parts up there. You can pause and rewind as needed, but I hope you enjoy making a sculpture and making a painting and being an Impressionist. And also, if you know that you can sculpt with toilet paper tubes, you can make all sorts of other things as well. Not just a frog, but you can make other animals or buildings or people or characters. The list goes on. Use your creativity and be a champion. Adios, amigos.